Hey everyone, welcome to this perception video where we're going to run through the content you need to know about illusions. Basically that means we're going to run through the key types of illusion and the key illusions that you need to know for your GCSE exam. So let's get straight into it. What are the types of illusions that you need to know for the exam? Well, there are 4 types. The first one is misinterpreted depth cues. This is quite simply the idea that our brain wrongly and incorrectly applies the rules of depth perception. So our brain's getting tricked by some of those monocular depth cues that we looked at in the last video, or it might be that we're using some of our past experiences from our depth perception and that's resulting in our brain getting tricked. We'll look at some examples of those in just a second. We have ambiguity. Ambiguity illusions is when an illusion or an image could be 2 things. It could be one thing. It could be something else. There are loads. We've looked at loads of ambiguity illusions in lessons. We have fiction illusions. Now, fiction literally means made up. So fiction illusions refer to illusions where our brain is seeing something that isn't really there. And finally, the size constancy illusions. Now, size constancy is the idea that our brain knows things stay the same size all the time. And it's when our brain is getting tricked by the information that our eyes are receiving, even though we know the size of the object doesn't change, but it looks like it is based on the scenario that's happening. So think about that Ames room where people look like they were getting bigger and smaller. Our brain's getting tricked because we know that people don't change size, but that illusion was set up very cleverly to make it look like people were getting big and small. And we'll quickly look at the layout of that room again in just a second. So those are your 4 types of illusion: misinterpreted depth cues, ambiguity, fiction, and size constancy. So you could get exam questions asking you for one of those. So make sure you know those 4 things. And the next thing you need to know are some specific illusions. The first specific one is the Necker cube. There it is. Basically, this is an ambiguity illusion because the cube could be almost like pointing off to the left or pointing off to the right. And the reason why this cube works as an illusion is because there's absolutely no depth cues here to help our brain correctly perceive this cube. So, there's no linear perspective, there's no shadow, so our brain gets confused and processes it both ways at the same time. Second illusion that you need to know for the exam is the Ponzo illusion. This is the idea that our brain gets tricked into thinking that the top line is longer than the bottom line. So this will be a misinterpreted depth cue illusion because we're being tricked by the linear perspective either side of it. It looks like the train tracks or a road going off into the distance. And because that top line looks like it's almost touching the track on either side, that makes our brain believe that it's a very big line compared to the bottom line, which is nowhere near the track. When in reality, if we take the lines away, you can actually see that they are exactly the same size. But you all know that, you're just learning and revising. Next illusion that you need to know is another misinterpreted depth cue. This is the Muller-Lyer illusion. Again, this is an illusion based on the fact that the arrowheads make the line on the right typically look longer than the line on the left. However, they are the same size. Now, this is also based on sort of our past experiences of depth cues, and the easiest way to sort of describe this is to show you a picture of the corners of a building, and you can see the Muller-Lyer illusion is present on both of those. So the one on the left, you've got the outside of the building, which is typically pointing towards you and coming towards you, so it makes us think that it's closer. And the one on the right is like the corner of an inside of a building, which is typically further away from us, which is a reason why our brain thinks that the second line is further away from us, therefore it's bigger. Next illusion is the Rubens vase illusion. Quite simple, this one. It's an ambiguity illusion. Are you seeing two faces, or are you seeing a vase, or are you seeing both? That's why it's ambiguity. And the final one here is the Canisa triangle. This is a fiction illusion. This is because you're probably perceiving a triangle, but like we've said in class, there is no triangle there. Our brain is just using the past experiences and using those sort of black dots almost to superimpose a triangle, because it looks like it's almost like the 3 points of a triangle. So our brain essentially uses past experience to fill the gaps in and add those edges of the triangle, so we see the triangle. Then this takes us on to that size constancy set of illusions. So when you think about size constancy, I want you to remember that the word is, again, it's one of those words which it is what it says it is. So it's the idea that our brain knows that things remain constant in terms of their size. So basically, how big something is doesn't change, and our brain knows that. So as we walk away from somebody, that person will get smaller and smaller in our vision, but our brain doesn't get freaked out and think, oh, that person's getting really small, because our brain has size constancy. So we can use that knowledge to set up some special illusions to trick the brain. So if you look, for example, at the picture of the door, as the door is opening, you can see that the picture of the door does change shape from like a rectangle to a bit like a trapezium, but our brain knows that the door isn't changing shape or size. On the right hand side, you've got the layout of the Ames room. If you can't remember what the Ames room is, quick YouTube search. It's that room where people get smaller and bigger when they walk from one side to the other. However, the reality was that the room is a very specially designed room, and that the room looks like a standard size, but it's not. One side of the room is really far away. One side of the room is really close. It's also sloped, so it looks like the person is getting bigger, because our brain is getting tricked by the size constancy of a human and the size constancy of a typical room. We think that a human and a room doesn't change size, but in this rare case and this special case they do. So it looks like the person's getting bigger as they walk to the smaller side of the room. Right, so that's the basics, and that's what you need to know about your illusions for the exam, types of illusions and the main types of illusions.